Talk show. So listen, y'all, we're getting ready to get into a whole nother conversation as it relates to our brother Bradley Gonmiah. We're going to talk about the commission that he's been appointed to here in the city of Newark by Mayor Raz J. Baraka as it relates to gentrification. So that's going to be an important conversation. Of course, Larry Ham is going to participate in that conversation as it relates to sharing with our young brother as it relates to activism in and of itself. But this is a very powerful young brother in and of himself. He's a recent graduate of Science Park High School. And of course, he's one of the proteges of one of our co-hosts here, Jonathan Aston, who is a teacher at Science High School and a master teacher as it relates to debate. And this brother to my right is no stranger in that area. If you've never heard him speak, get ready. You're going to hear from a very wise young man at 17 years old. Larry said even before he walked in the building, I think I'm going to do more listening than I'm going to do speaking. So we're really impressed by him. Larry, you should put your headphones on. Okay. So on this particular part of the interview, I'm going to back up and, I'm going to let the brother talk a little bit to introduce himself. And then, of course, he's going to learn something from his elder to the left. So I'm going to back up and let one of our other co-hosts take over. Of course, Councilwoman Donna, what's your middle initial, Donna? Donna K. For take no prisoners, kill everybody in sight. It's going to take over. Councilwoman Donna K.Williams is going to take over this seat. And she's going to do her best to moderate and hold the brother. You know, in the country, she said, hold my mule. Because she's going to do her best to hold his brother's mule. So get ready, my brother. Go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself, my brother.
Hi, so I'm Bradley Gonmiah. I just graduated from Science Park High School. I'm 17 years old, as previously mentioned. During high school, I was a debater. That's how I know Jonathan Aston. I helped refound the Newark Students Union, a student-run and led civic organization aimed at ensuring quality education for all Newark students. My junior year, I refounded that. Actually, my last meeting was yesterday, since I'm not going to be a Newark student anymore. Okay, I can't be part of it.
The Newark Student Union was the name of it?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Newark Students Union. It was an organization originally founded in 2012, aiming at really getting back local control, because at that time the Newark Public School District was under state control, so people in Trenton were making decisions about what went on in Newark Public Schools. So they, all that was really to aid charter school expansion and the degradation of traditional, quote-unquote, Newark Public Schools. Students walked out across the district in order to fight for that. But yeah, now we actually regained local control in 2018. So seeing that, and seeing that the Newark Students Union kind of faded off because it is an entirely student-run and led organization, when people graduate, it's kind of hard sometimes to keep it going. So it kind of fell off. But in 2017, 2018, when we were regaining local control, I decided, along with some other friends, to refound the Newark Students Union, because students were integral to regaining local control. We should be able to use that power to make our schools better. So that's the main thing that I've been working on for the past few years. And then I also was just recently appointed to the Equitable Growth Commission, because of what I do in terms of politics. I think the mayor heard me speak one time.
Put you to work. That's right.
Yeah.
So, now, tell me again your first name.
Bradley.
And what was the last name?
Gonmiah.
Okay.
Gonmiah. Yes.
Okay. So we're going to say Bradley. So Bradley, you're sitting here. Do you know Mr. Ham?
Yes.
Okay, so you've met and see that you had a role, and you were the president of the North?
Oh, well, we didn't have like that kind of hierarchical structure. I was just a member.
You were a member of the North Student Union, and Mr. Ham, I think to this date you may have the title of being the youngest appointed board member to the North Board of Education. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know
So
that.
I was appointed at 17,
Oh.
same age as you. Yep.
So just, you know, Mayor Gibson, who was going on, had appointed him, and he had a role back to Mayor Gibson, just like Mayor Barack. You seen something in you. Mayor Gibson saw something in him. So, Larry, so the torch is still being passed.
Hey.
And you
Glad to see it.
And you had to leave that. You had to leave that behind into the hands of your fellow members to say, "Hey, we have to keep this going on." And how long have you been a part of the North Student Union?
Well, we just refounded it in
2012, you said.
Well, it was originally founded in 2012, but I was part of the next iteration of it, which started in 2018.
Okay, 2018.
Yeah, so
Okay.
about a year.
And you remember, I don't know if you remember, Chairman, that the Newark Student Union was very instrumental around Marilyn Zuniga's case. That they
Right.
came and they
That's
stood
right.
with her.
That's right.
So there was, I don't know, that was how many years ago?
I think that was about 4 years ago, wasn't it?
Okay, about 4, and they stood in solidarity with a teacher in Orange. So have you ever heard of Marilyn
No,
Zuniga?
I didn't
Okay,
hear
so,
about that.
so write that name, Marilyn
Right,
Zuniga,
right.
down, see what she's
But
doing.
but the Newark Student Union was really key in getting in the struggle for returning local control to Newark. I remember they had a number of acts of civil disobedience, but one of them was they sat in at the Board of Education, I think for 3 days, for some long time.
Yeah,
You know,
the video's
like-
still on YouTube.
it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I
So
said,
everybody that's listening, go on YouTube, look up Newark Student Union,
Yeah.
and see the sit-ins and other actions that they've engaged in.
And you said that now you're a part of the Equitable Growth Commission. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So that Newark Equitable Growth Advisory Commission, from what I've read about it so far, all I've read is the ordinance. It's basically an anti-gentrification type of commission. It's aimed at making or ensuring that through Newark's period of growth that we've been seeing, that the people who have lived here aren't adversely affected or displaced by, and can in fact benefit from that growth.
Have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you a part of the? I think there was just a conference here on social equity here at Rutgers about 2 weeks ago. Did you get to participate in that conference?
No.
Okay. All right. Make sure we get some information to you on that. So, have you attended a meeting yet? Have you had an opportunity?
We haven't met yet on it.
Do you have any ideas of some of the things that you want to, or you're waiting to kind of get with the group and just kind of hear the needs and?
I'm kind of waiting to get with the group, but I have some ideas in terms of coming from my position as somebody that lives in Newark and has been kind of displaced once or twice.
Okay.
If you could put it that way. I think one of the major things that we could do right now that would be really important, regardless of like actually doing anything, is educating people about the resources that are already out there within Newark, and not just that as a blanket term, but having an actual, I don't know if there's any system already put in place or like some PR thing for the city of Newark, but just really getting down and making sure that people know about the things that the city is already doing in order to help those that are at risk of being displaced, or those who can't necessarily afford their rent or a house at market rate and things like that. Because there are, like, the affordable housing part of the city is something that a lot more people, I think, could take advantage of only if they knew. And there's a lot of things that are actually going on right now. Actually, I also work with another organization called the Newark Civics Trust, and one of the things we're trying to push for right now is a banning of the blacklist So basically, what the blacklist is where if somebody goes to court for getting evicted from their house, what happens is even if they go to court and win, they're put down on this list that just says that they went to court.
That
and
you were in
renters,
you were in evicted status. Okay.
and all landlords basically have access to that and can see which prospective renters are more risky than other prospective renters, and that puts them in a situation where they can't necessarily get
So this list, if this new
a house.
project is coming on board and your name is on this list because you went through an evicted situation, no matter what the outcome was, the developer, landlords is saying, oh, they were on eviction, let's move them to the side. So you're trying to do away so that everybody can have a fair shot at all the new developments that are coming on. So I know one of the pieces.
But that's separate from the Equitable Growth Commission.
But no, that's a very good thing because that's very it doesn't do any good that if these opportunities are available, but you're already going to be put or not even given the opportunity because you're blacklisted. So, and one piece of legislation that Mayor Baraka did is that all developments that come on board, there's going to be at least 20% affordable housing in these projects. So that's and people need to know about that. And when because sometimes people just kind of say, no, I can't afford it, or they just have this perception of what and if they don't look or delve into the details, and they'll never be a part of the new things that are coming.
Yeah, and a lot of people try to go get their houses. They just go out and like drive around the block and see what places have the for rent sign on the front. So maybe having ways that people can more systematically find a place to live and actually actively going out to find those people, I think is something that's really important.
Trying to match people. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's also another thing. I think that the mayor just passed was a law where people who are going to court get like a free attorney if they can't afford one within the city. I think that's something that's also good to have. And then also just educating renters on what their rights are as renters. So if you're at risk of being evicted, but your house is just a trash and the landlord isn't fixing anything, you're not necessarily supposed to be evicted from that place because the landlord wasn't following what their duties were in renting you the house. So getting more people to know about those rights in terms of that. But then there's also just systemic things, larger things that if we don't work on now, it'll get out of our control as the demographics change within the city.
And more, there's an old process called the Marini Law, and I used to work in Superior Court, but it was basically that if I lived in an apartment and my landlord was not taking care of it, that I can come and make my complaint to the court, have to deposit the money in the court, and then the judge would send out an inspector, and let's say it was a broken window, and let's say if rent was $10 a day and my rent was $300 for the month, and it took him 14 days to fix it, the judge would prorate that $140, and then I would only have to pay the $160 because it was unlivable for that period of time. I don't know, and that's something similar.
What's that called?
It was the Marini Law. I'll look it up while we're talking and everything. Okay. But housing has changed tremendously. You know, in the realm of the civil rights movement, housing laws and having equitable housing rights was something that was big that came out on the civil rights, and that's something. I mean, because it seems like they're being rolled back
everything
every day now. So that's something. I made there's a clip. I know I've seen it portrayed in movies about Dr. King, but the one where he went to Chicago and he went to.
He lived in public housing.
But then he did put a bright light, so to speak, on the conditions of public housing.
Right.
And when they realized it was Dr. King, but I know in the movie King they showed a good portrayal of what Dr. King had done, is because all it is, and particularly now with this Secretary of Housing who has no clue. what's his name, Ben Carson, and you know, and it's just, you know, housing. Some of the housing laws, it took so long, you know, anywhere from redlining and all of that,
Right.
that to see all of these things being rolled back. And one of the things, you know, landlords, slumlords is basically something that came out of it, and a lot of regulation.
Yeah, I learned that term from my mom.
What, slumlord?
Yeah.
Okay. Chairman, anything?
Well, I just want to say congratulations to you, Bradley, for being appointed to this commission. And now, are you going? Did you just graduate from science?
Yes, I just graduated like 3 days ago.
3 days ago. So, what college are you going to?
I will be attending Harvey Mudd College. It's a STEM science college in California.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now, how long will you be on the commission? Because you'll be going away in September, won't you?
Yeah. So the term of the commission is 2 years, and even though I will be away, I still will be capable of participating in the commission through things like how we are streaming right now,
Yeah.
technology.
Technology.
But
Right.
still be able to help out, even though I won't necessarily be there physically. I always be able to travel back for the summers and things like that. So.
Right. Well, you can Skype into the meetings, right?
Yeah.
You can use Skype. You can be there on the screen and
Yeah.
watching them, and they watching you. And
Facebook Live,
You know,
Mark Zuckerberg. you know.
college will give you an opportunity to do some study on the issue of gentrification.
Yeah.
To read articles. There's a growing body of literature now on gentrification. And while you're at college, you know, when you work a job, you don't have a lot of time for studying, you know, but since you're at school, you know, maybe if you have, I know a lot of your courses are going to be science, but if you have any socially related courses, sociology, politics, so on and so forth, maybe you could ask your professors to let you write some of your assignment papers on gentrification or on gentrification situations in particular cities. And then you could use your school paper almost as a policy paper after it's written.
Exactly.
You could send it to the commission and say, here, I have some
based on my research,
these are some recommendations I have. You know,
Yeah,
because
the school actually is, even though it's a science-centered school, it was founded by Harvey Mudd, was the guy's name, to also be largely centered around the humanities. So I
Okay.
will be doing the humanities as well as STEM.
Right. Because when I was at school, I was at Princeton University, and every opportunity I had, when I had a course, if I could take that course and use it to study a particular issue I was concerned about, that's what I would do. In fact, my senior thesis that I wrote to graduate from Princeton was actually on the Newark Board of Education. And you might do the same thing. You know, I don't know what the requirements of your school are if you'll have to have. When I was at Princeton, we had junior papers. That is, you had to produce each semester no less than 50-page paper in your discipline. Like if you were a politics major, educate, whatever it is, whatever your discipline was, your major was, you had to do 2 junior papers in addition to your regular coursework. You had to do 2 junior papers in your junior year, and you had to do a senior thesis. So college will provide you an opportunity to really study the issue of gentrification and then use the research that you garnered and use that, you know, to make recommendations to the Gentrification Commission.
Yeah.
And what do you, how do you, I mean, right now we have, I guess communities move, you know, Brooklyn, people in Brooklyn are being outpriced, so then they're coming this way.
Here.
They're coming this way.
Yeah.
And with people from different communities come new ideas and, you know, and just different ways of doing things. How do you view gentrification as negative or positive or a little bit of both?
Personally, it's negative.
Okay.
Gentrification, just
Mhm.
even the connotation,
Mhm.
when you hear it, it's associated with negative things.
Mhm.
So you can have growth. Sometimes people think of gentrification just as growth, but it's not. That's not the only thing it's defining. So you can have growth absent gentrification. There's many instances where that has happened, but usually those towns get burned down by white people. When gentrification really is, it's centered around displacement and moving people out that once lived in those places. So historically, there's been.
Is it always Is it always purposefully?
I think a lot of the times, I don't see a reason why it wouldn't be purposeful.
Okay.
There's always people planning and plotting. The communities, I just say, the communities that lived in Newark never stopped owning Newark's property. Even though they fled after 1969, after 1967, they never stopped owning property in Newark. So, well, I can get speculative, but I mean, it's all planned. Like, even if you go downtown, everybody works here, so it's only logical that the people would want to live near where they work now, and that's what they're preparing for. So if you go, I remember when my sister first took me the special way to Penn Station, because we were going to New York one time, and there's literally bridges that are just all downtown connecting the buildings. So people that work in those buildings never actually have to touch the streets of Newark. There's bridges coming from the parking lot, so you can drive your car into the parking lot and walk across the bridge to your building and never have to touch the streets of Newark. You walk up there, if you could see dots representing the race of each individual in Newark, you would just see massive amounts of dots of white people just centered within Newark during the daytime. Then at nighttime, Newark will be like what we see usually. But it makes sense now that they would want to come back, I guess, because they all work here anyway. So.
And we'll live here, and then and what's interesting, I'm born 1967. What year are you born?
2001.
2001.
Wow.
Chairman, what year are you born?
1953.
53. Okay, so that's it. So when I was born, you were 14 years old, and just to see the difference, because you heard about this in. Where we're hearing about it now in Newark. You heard about it, I think about 5 years ago, there were several articles that came out about Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was known as Chocolate City.
Not anymore.
Then I see articles coming out of the lightning of Chocolate City, you know, and the whole, and it's this constant construction building going on down in D.C. And
right.
Gone, it's just, a different place. And I go to a legislative conference every year in D.C. And I remember running into this student from Howard, and she said that her landlord wanted to sell her townhouse. And let's say 4 years ago, she wanted to sell her the townhouse down on Florida, maybe, and it was like $300,000. And she didn't buy it. She came back, and now that townhouse is worth like $1.2 million, you know, in 4 years, and just to see the whole demographics of, like you said, what walking in the corridors of DC and changing. So I know DC was one major town. Newark is, Harlem is another one. And
Harlem.
Our major.
Brooklyn already.
Brooklyn, Brooklyn, our major black metropolis, if you would say, and how, what can we do different to maintain ownership of our towns, and to also have this the same prosperity buy-in, but it to be done with our own, the people that live here, as opposed to people coming up. You know, what do you think? And you know, what can you offer from a place in history? And what do you think we should do going forward?
Well, I think one major part probably is retention of Newarkers. So Newark produces a lot of great people.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them don't live in Newark now.
Mm-hmm.
They all leave.
Running to get out.
They live in West Orange.
Mm-hmm.
They live in Livingston. They
Montclair.
live around Newark. They come to Newark to visit for that nostalgia. They don't live in Newark. So I think a major part, and even hearing from my friends, everyone wants to go to these colleges. I didn't choose to go to the college that even though it kind of sounds weird, but like I'm going all the way to California, but I didn't choose it because I wanted to leave Newark. It was more for the academics and stuff like that, because they had my major. But
you're going to prepare yourself so you can come back.
Yeah, I'm preparing myself so I could come back. But that's not the same mindset as most people. It's mostly, I want to get out of Newark.
Okay.
I want to go off somewhere else. They probably end up living by where they went to college, or they're pulled different ways. So we're not, the only way, there's a lot of housing being built in Newark. Somebody got to live in those houses. Of course, we have the homeless population, but until we become more compassionate, nobody's going to care about them. But there's also the way, who's going to fill those houses, right? So we're giving birth to children. The population's increasing, but the population's also moving. So I think a big part of that is retention. Theoretically, there are, like I said, there's successful people that are Newarkers, but they're not staying in Newark. And I think that's a major component of it.
Right.
I think keeping people that are in Newark will also mitigate the displacement of other folk, because they're from Newark, they have an attachment to Newark. They're not other people coming in that would not care about the people that are in Newark already. They should. The probability of somebody that is from Newark caring about Newarkers is much higher than the probability of somebody from outside of Newark caring about Newarkers. So that would help just also make sure that more people aren't displaced for other reasons, like just being poor.
So what I think I heard you say is to create opportunities for people to stay. I think I just heard you say that.
Yeah, or like incentives for people to stay as well.
And Chairman, what can, speaking from a historical, what has history taught you, and what can we do better to help create these opportunities and for people to stay?
Well, it's a heavy question. First of all, one of the things I would recommend that people read, and Brother Bradley, maybe when you get to school you have a chance to read, or maybe some reading you can do over the summer, is read Dr. Robert Kirvan's book, Inside Newark, Decline, Rebellion, and the Search for Transformation. In that book, Dr. Kirvan deals with the transformation. He passed away 2 years ago, and his book is it's historical in one sense, but it also deals with the political economy of Newark in another sense, and he deals with the whole question of gentrification toward the last chapters of the book. The other thing I would recommend people read is Urban Political Economy by David C. Gordon, because gentrification is not really produced by personal choices. Gentrification is produced by market forces being essentially aided and abetted by public policy. But the fundamental drivers of gentrification are market forces. You identified one of those market forces: people searching for affordable rent. We have an exodus out of New York City into New Jersey of people who can't afford to live in New York anymore. Now, the irony is they can pay premium rents here because even the high rents here are low compared to New York City. But the contradiction is that the people who live here now cannot afford the rents that landlords are charging the people who are in the exodus from New York City and other places into New Jersey. So if you want to keep people in Newark, if you want people not to be displaced by gentrification, you must have rent control. That's number one. You must have strong rent control laws, because gentrification is driven, when we look at gentrification, we look at the gentry, the people who actually live here, but they're not the people that actually make the gentrification. The people that make the gentrification are the big developers who have the resources to build 1,000-unit housing development or condominium development. Do you know how much capital you have to have? But all up and down the Northeast corridor, it's happening. It's happening in every city where a major railroad line runs through. Because when these people want to come to New York, they want to be able to walk out of their house, get on the train, and go to New York. I'm going to have to withdraw for a second.
Yeah, but what I am going to say is that
Hello.
And that's I'm a councilperson in Orange, New Jersey, and I'm on the Morris Essex line. And what I will say is that we have developers coming online and they're purchased, and so we're building new buildings. And so if you've been an Orangeite for, let's say, all your life, and you've rented for like 10 years, maybe because we do have rent control, so maybe you started at 8 and now you're at 900. But if the new developers are coming on, they're starting at 1,400, and so that's like a $500 jump. That's like a $500 jump, and it, like how can I, go from 900 to $1,400? So that's really, really hard, and it is hard for people who can't understand or who want to be a part of what's new that's coming into town, but to go, I'm in this income, and to go from 900. So if I am an elected official, these new developments are coming on. These new developments are making it hard for the people who live here to be a part of it. So you're exactly right.
Yeah. So what kind of rent control is there?
Well, we all have rent control, but what I think we need to do is that, again, it's no more than, I guess, I don't know the number off the top of my head, no more than 3 to 5% raise. But that, if I started that, but if the new developer can come on and then they can create a new property at $1,400, they're outside of what the people are accustomed to paying. So it's just, so we need to deal with the new. I guess. Well, I know what you just said. Make the new developments match the current. We need to look at, so what's your current rent market? So if I have all of these properties, and the majority, if I do all of my rentals and all of my rents are paying an average of $950, but then the new development comes in at $1,400, then that's something for us to look at. So that's, because then by just bringing a new development, I'm gentrifying the place, just by bringing in something new and allowing them to start at a fair market value. And even though it's a fair market value, quote unquote, for Essex County, it may not be the realized value for the city of Orange.
Yeah. And I think one of the major issues that arises on like an individual basis that's kind of more scary is when these people are displaced because they can't afford necessarily the rent inside of a city. I think, yeah, there are problems with living within a city, but there are also a lot of benefits, like access to a lot of resources, and you're close to everything. But a lot of times when these people are displaced, sometimes they have other cities to fall back on, but other times they're just moving to rural areas where they're not necessarily accustomed to or have the resources to get out and actually do anything. So they're moving farther away from, I don't want to say, but like civilization, like kind of, and you're moving really far, and that's the only place that you can afford at that point. And I think when you reach that, then it starts to become scary, because then you're kind of like starving people and you're kind of putting them in a situation where they're ejected from society and aren't necessarily able to fend for themselves, really. I think that's one of the major things. That's what happened to my family, actually. We had to move to Pennsylvania because we were paying like $1,000-something rent, and we couldn't afford it because we were more used to paying $800. And my father is like the only one working. But yeah, we had to move to Pennsylvania, but the issue with that was my father, we always used to have to drive to places.
Right.
So we're actually using more money just based on, just to get places, just to live like how we were living before, like how we were normally
You could walk out
living.
the door and everything was accessible.
Yeah, you could walk out your door, everything was
Right.
accessible, and that's something that's being taken away. Like, you're just dropping people in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, I don't know.
And I'm listening, we have Patricia Glover, who's on our Facebook Live, and she says she's witnessed a major change in East Orange over the past 2 years in housing and rents as well. A good number of folks coming from Brooklyn, so she's actually, and then somebody said, and Nancy, we do have rent control in Orange, Nancy, we'll talk about it, but then Patricia said, we lived in the Oranges, excluding West, for over 30 years. Too many high rises, high rents being built at the train station. That's what Chairman said. And it's a known fact that these buildings are not affordable and not for the residents of Orange, East Orange gentrification. So she just stated, and that's what happens. And so indirectly, the government, we're pricing our people out because we are not, and that's why Mayor Baraka's legislation that says that anything that comes, any new development, it must have 20% at least affordable, because now we're giving an opportunity for the people that live here, and affordable will be more in tune with the status quo of what's going on in a direct community. And I know there's this whole thing that the Oranges, East Orange, Orange, East Orange, North, Irvington, we've had our quota of affordable housing, but the fact is that we probably, the statistics may say that, but if the people who live here can't afford to live here, then we need to re-examine that.
Yeah.
And by, like you say, creating opportunities and you're right, building along, and what's more desirable is because the people from New York can't, and now they're coming, and they want to be able to walk out their door, get on the train, go back to New York, get the high salary, come back home, and so on and so forth. So, in your to your point, and that's what the conference that the Equitable Growth, the Newark Equitable Growth Advisory Commission, that's what the conference they had, the social equity, is to make sure that when all this building is going around, that we're considering what's happening right here, that we're not outsourced, we're not out putting people out before we sign on a dotted line. So I hope that you are looking at a talk and probably going and talk to people and getting them in the door, because people will not be engaged unless we engage them and go find that. And there's different ways, you just said through marketing, maybe mailers is, it depends on what group of people you're talking to. You probably can't Facebook grandma, maybe can, but maybe can't, so maybe she has to get something in writing, but maybe, millennials and they want to see something that's more concise and to the point. So we have to figure out how we have to reach all people and make sure that the information is given. And also there's this term in our community, I can't think of the term, but it's basically that majority of people living here working 2 and 3 jobs, so that they don't have enough time to really get, unless you can make the information and say, hey, I'm Bradley, here's the information, here's my number, we have this building coming up. If you make this, you have to make it real to the point, concise, so they can, so they can digest it and realize if it's for them or not. So
I think the process could definitely be made more streamlined, rather than having people have to jump through hoops in order to get affordable housing necessarily. We could actually push for them to be able to receive those resources. I know for even for my dad, like I kind of had to help him in terms of trying to receive affordable housing because he's one of those people that works 3 jobs. My mom isn't in the best shape to actually go out and do things herself, so a lot of times it's just people get displaced because it's the easiest thing that they could do at the moment when you're busy worrying about getting food or paying the next paycheck. I mean, using your next paycheck to pay your bills, like you don't necessarily have the time to go out and seek that help that would make a lot of things easier in your life.
You're worried about what's right in front of you, and what's right in front of you is getting groceries in the refrigerator and paying that rent. That's right. So tell us in closing, excited about having you here, and when is your first meeting? Is it a meeting that's open to the public, or do you guys meet and disseminate the information?
So we haven't actually, I actually just talked to the director of affordable housing earlier today, but they're planning more of the swearing in first because we haven't actually been officially put onto the commission, so that might happen a little later, around July. They're still planning out the exact first day, but I think definitely like having a method of showing people or telling people when those meetings are, because there are people that are part of the commission, but of course you always need more time, you always need more minds in order to solve these types of issues. We need to engage the community. I think out of everyone really on there, I'm the only one that's not necessarily like a professional or like somebody with a title necessarily. I'm more of a community.
Not yet, because you're on your way. So.
Yeah, I'm on my way, but like I'm one of the only ones that is kind of like just a person that was affected, not necessarily like an expert or somebody that runs a business or something like that. So engaging more of those people, I think a lot of people deserve to be on the commission. So let's put them on.
Yeah, and that's and some to have somebody that's sitting at the table who's been affected and who's not giving the theoretical of what they think. You're giving the actual. This is what happened to me. You know, that's very.
You got to bridge the gap between the policies and what's theoretically good and what actually realistically is helping people.
Well, thank you for being here, and we will tell. And I'm sure Mr. Austin is somewhere listening, but we. Here at All Politics Local, we have a standard question we ask all our guests that come on, and that question is: Who is your favorite hip hop artist or your favorite song? Hip hop, and it can't be Beyonce. I just have to always say it right. No.
I wasn't gonna say Beyonce, but probably right now I really like. And for the past year, I've really liked Kendrick Lamar, and DNA is just on repeat all the time.
Okay, Kendrick Lamar, you got that, DJ Reynolds? Is that approved, sir? Okay, you got DJ Reynolds, and that's approved. Well, thank you. We look forward to you coming back. When do you leave for school?
I'm flying out on August 18th.
August 18th. And what the area? Where you be flying to? LA, San Diego?
Yeah, it's actually Ontario. There's one in California too, not Canada. Okay. But it's near LA kind of, but it's closer to the actual school, which is in Claremont.
So 2 things that we need you to do. When you get the information about your meeting, please give us a flyer so that we can post it and let people know about it. And then make sure we get your address, because you're going to be a student away, and we're going to send you some cans of tuna fish.
Hi.
That's very important for college students. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. DJ Rhino, we're turning it over to you.